Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
I thought this was going to be hard, but...
Welcome to Deges and Dragons.
Who wants some of the Ripper?
Air state champs, baby. Woo!
He's clearly Captain Crunch. I'm a man of the people.
Shattered world.
Ripper knows. Ripper always knows. Degecast.
And welcome to another episode of the Degecast, the supplemental podcast for our YouTube show, Deges and Dragons. Hey, do you want to be a part of this show? Please do. You can join us. Email us at degetime@gmail.com or leave us a message at the Degetime voicemail at 617-506-9686. We'll answer your questions, read your comments right here next week. Now, first, the good. He's our resident psychology and therapy expert and our resident game master, Conrad Audette.
Hello, everyone.
And next, the bad. He's our veteran RPG gamer, a longtime game master in his own right, and a permanent member of our Deges and Dragons player panel, Tony Shermuxis.
Yeah, bad's only, perspective, really.
Yeah, I know. I'm more talking about alignment rather than the fact that you're here, you know?
Oh,
that
totally.
sounds like something the bad would say.
Absolutely. And crap, I guess that makes me the ugly. I'm your host, Nate Lindberg. You can find me all over Twitter at Nate Lindberg, and you can follow our brand on Facebook, Twitter, and most importantly, YouTube at Degetime. Now, the Deges just defeated the final Oni and lifted the curse surrounding the Isle of Azu-Honshu in our final episode of our Clink series. Although from the sounds of it, it doesn't quite sound like lifting the curse had the effect they intended. Now, speaking of intentions, now, we didn't intend on having to re-record this podcast. Yeah, that's right. We did this once before. And we're going to do it again. And I swear, I hit record this time. Last time I did too, but the program only recorded like 5 minutes of what was the greatest podcast in the world. Now, we're not going to be able to recreate the greatest podcast in the world, so this is just a tribute. And terrible jokes aside, please join me in a sincere thank you for round two. And welcome to the show, the creator of Clink, David Schirduan.
Thanks for having me on, y'all. The war against my previous self continues.
Yes, thank you very much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Certainly appreciate you coming back and dealing with my well, I don't know if this is my technology stupidity or if it was just the technology stupidity, but hey, stupidity nonetheless.
Well, what you don't know, Nate, is that I sabotaged your audio so we could hang out more.
All right, hey, cool. You didn't have to do that. We could have just hung out. Could have played a game or something, you know?
No, that's too direct.
Fair enough. All right, so let's get this going here. Let's do some hanging out. And you know what? For the first question, let's change things up this time. And I'm going to kick it over to Tony.
Alrighty. Well, David, you're the mind behind Technical Grimoire. Are there any other people involved, or are you the complete mastermind?
For my first few games, it's basically just me and some brilliant artists and editors and layout wizards that I hired to help me. Recently, I've stepped into more of a publishing role, and I've gotten to publish some incredible games written by other people. And that's been sort of an exciting evolution. So maybe Technical Grimoire will be a whole clan of people.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So far, we've released Low Country Crawl, written by John Gregory, Marsh Goons, written by Joe Banner, and the zine I just released called Tempered Legacy has 8 or 9 writers involved. So that's been really exciting to work with more cool people in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's and there are a lot of cool people in this industry, as I'm finding out. The more we're talking, the more people we're meeting. It's this is just a really cool space. I got to admit, we've met a lot of really just amazing people. Now, do have to ask, what was the original inspiration for Clink? It's it's such an easy game to play, which is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. I feel like it's a great introductory piece to for somebody that's new to RPGs. So yeah, I mean, what was the original inspiration for Clink, and brought you to it?
The inspiration behind Clink came from long ago, in the year 2012, I think. Someone on Reddit posted about a game called Roll for Shoes, where everybody starts with a blank character sheet and you roll to see what skills and equipment you have as you play. I ended up turning that into a small one-page game called Kintsugi, which kicked off the 200-word challenge. And then a couple of years later, I liked the idea of starting with a blank character sheet, and I wanted to explore more storytelling, pick up and play games. And so Clink sort of arose from that concept.
Cool. So, real quick, touch on that 200-word RPG. I think we might have touched on it the last time we talked. The first conversation was a few months back, but yeah, as I was on your website earlier in the day, and I saw that, it kind of jump started my memory, and I thought it was pretty cool. If you don't mind touching on that, just kind of explaining what the 200-word challenge is.
Happy to. The 200-word challenge is an annual RPG game design challenge. We didn't run it in 2020, but we've been running it since 2015 or 2014. It is open to anybody, and when you submit, you have to submit an entry with 200 words or less and design a whole game within that constraint. No images, no layout, just plain text, 200 words. And I think we've had over 2,000 submissions over the past 4 or 5 years, and some of them really are incredible. Wow. They break down some barriers, and they're pushing new ground. And it was such an honor to be a part of that and to help facilitate that challenge. But the real jewels is all the games and everyone who participated. You can see them all on the 200-word RPG website. All the games are up there, free to view, and there's some real bangers in there.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Anything that not only increases what's out there for this community as a whole, but really just kind of promotes. I guess ongoing
creativity.
Creativity, yeah, creativity. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I was going to say ongoing education, which is kind of similar. Creating and writing and things. But anything like that, I'm on board with. And no, that's great. That's great. Now, how long did you work on Clink before you launched the Kickstarter?
So Clink was one of the fastest turnarounds I've had on a book. I had a rough draft typed up, and I was throwing some ideas around and doing some playtesting when Ben Dutter from Sigilstone Publishing reached out and says, "This looks like a cool concept. I'd like to buy it and publish it for you." It's like, well, it's not really done yet. He's like, "No, it's perfect." So we ran a Kickstarter soon after that, and we kept it as a small, tightly focused game. Originally, Clink was going to be a lot bigger, but I didn't really think the coin flipping could support that, and it worked better pick up and play anyways. So we ended up with this more focused, streamlined game that I'm really proud of. And all props to Ben Dutter for making that happen. He did a great job.
No, that's awesome. Because so next week we're going to be, or next week as this comes out, not next week as we're recording this, but next week our Worldwide Wrestling RPG gameplay is going to start, and actually I'm GMing that game. And in that game and the gameplay and all that, we talk about how it's my first time GMing a game, and it's kind of true. The very first game I actually really GM'd was Clink. However, it was just for my wife and a friend of ours, and the game only lasted about an hour and a half long before our buddy had to kind of leave. Unfortunately, it was like an unexpected thing; he had to leave, and we didn't get a chance to go back to it. But that was my first foray into GMing something, and it was just such an easy experience to pick up this game. And I mean, I had played it before with Conrad, and I don't know if Tony, I don't remember if Tony was in the game. I know I played with Conrad.
Yeah, I was there too.
You were? Okay. But I played with these guys, and so I kind of knew what was going on, and I had the mechanics down, but I wasn't really a huge RPG guy. So at that particular time, and it was nice that I could just pick it up. I could explain to both my wife and our friend who had never even touched an RPG in the past, how to play, and they both had a blast. So it was great. Western setting, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad that there are games like this out there that are pick up and play, that you can kind of introduce people that may not have been, an RPG gamer, or kind of put off by all those books you see, all the D&D books and all this stuff. Pick it up and try something new.
I'm so glad to hear that you felt it was something easy to step into and pick up really quick. That warms my heart. Thanks, Nate.
No problem. It really was. And like I said, my wife, where she's nerdy, but she's never really, she's not really into RPGs. But for her, the books was really the thing that was kind of the stop for her, that she didn't really want to have to go through all of that. And, just really quick, easy, fun, and introduced her to a whole new world. So this was cool. Speaking of, the world of Clink, you've got about a dozen other worlds you've created, about a dozen other games you've created. Now, have you always been a game creator, or is this just a side hustle?
If it's a side hustle, I'm not hustling enough. It's definitely a hobby that pays for itself. That's how I think about it.
There you go.
I feel like anyone who is a GM is a game designer. The first time they decide, oh, you know what, don't worry about that rule, we're just going to use this instead, or they tweak the damage of a longsword, you're all of a sudden a game designer. So the evolution from just being a GM to a designer was very subtle for me, and it didn't take long before I realized I wanted to make something of my own.
I kind of like that analogy. It's like, obviously I've only taken the foray into GMing, I guess I'll call it 1.5 times, but you do, I mean, in playing with Conrad, the majority of the times that I've played a game, Conrad as GM, that's always been my favorite part of these games, is like, you come up against something, there might be a rules question. The GM's just like, for the sake of the story, let's keep going. You don't like, there's another group of people that I've gamed with in the past. It's actually Tony's regular gaming group, but they, no offense to these guys, because hey, they're cool, love them, but they're sticklers for the crunchy rules. They wanna make sure everything is done to a T, and I just feel like that takes out of the enjoyment of the story and the overall game. So, but having to step into that GM role myself, it wasn't recently, but I've been editing that footage for Worldwide Wrestling RPG, kind of going back through my mindset and everything through it. There were a couple times where you had to make some rules tweaks, and I could really see where, you start changing one rule, changing another rule, and before you know it, you've almost changed an entire game. You've got an entirely new thing.
And honestly, that's what I love about the tabletop RPGs as a whole, because there's no right or wrong way to play or prepare for the game, as long as everybody involved is having fun. Whether it's somebody who's just looking for simple rules to kind of just pick up and go, or people who are more involved in the rules and want to make sure that they're doing everything to the letter. So that's just personally one thing I love about the tabletop aspect as a whole.
Absolutely.
Kind of on that subject, David, what specifically draws you towards tabletop RPGs?
You mean like, what do I look for in a game, or why did I take refuge here in the first place?
Yes.
yes. There we go. I like that answer. Yes.
I became a GM like so many before me because no one else wanted to do it, but we all wanted to play.
Thank you, Conrad.
As for games that I look for now, I really value my time, so I appreciate systems that are very light. I appreciate adventures that are well presented, well organized, that I can jump into, and I enjoy playing with people who either have flexible schedules or don't mind missing a couple sessions.
Now, what have you found to be, because obviously, at everything Deeges, everything that we do here is kind of taking a look at the therapeutic side of RPG gaming. What have you found to be therapeutic, either working on this project yourself or just in RPG games in general? And how do you think that this game could help other people?
For me, the most therapeutic part of GMing and the tabletop experience is the community. Not just playing games with my friends and building a story together, but interacting with other designers, encouraging other creators, and being parts of other projects. One of the reasons I've moved into the publisher role is because it feels really good to find someone who's an amazing writer and pay them good money to make something incredible. Yeah. That's a really rewarding experience. As for therapeutic, from the game's perspective, I am not a therapist, and my idea of mental health involves like 12 or 13 hours of video games, so I don't know if I have the healthiest perspective.
No, not a problem.
But I would definitely recommend anybody who is curious about RPGs or curious about playing, the act of getting together with your friends and playing a game together is really healthy just from a relationship standpoint, because you have to agree on the rules, you have to resolve conflict, you need to work together, think about other people. That would be my recommendation, because it's been really good for me. It teaches me a lot about how to lead, how to think about other people, how to keep, like, you know, what is best for the rest of my group when I make a decision. All that stuff is just gold.
And you didn't think you were going to have good insight on the subject.
This is the same thing I said last time. I just wrote it down and never forgot it.
So, like, one thing that you're just talking about that I think Clink does particularly well is the people at the table, while being mysterious, share a creed. In a lot of other games, like, there are people who sit down and they're like, we're going to make every character have a distinct role in the game, or we're just going to kind of make characters we want to be. And there's all these different motivations. And even with Clink, there can be all sorts of motivations, but there's still this one unifying theme for the group, where our theme that the group came to is lift the curse for the town. It's just sort of like this generally agreed upon thing by these four fairly different people with different backgrounds, especially, like, you know, the juxtaposition of Casanova and, well, I mean, all the rest of them. he's very different from the rest of them as a Spanish priest.
Spanish priest in Japan.
Yeah, his cultural background is vastly different. But even just, you know, if you compare him to any of the characters, but it's still, we're going to lift the curse for this town one way or another. And though initially they failed spectacularly and questioned whether or not they were the ones even best suited for this task, or if they would manage to pull it off, period. You know, it still unified them and they followed through on it. I think we were just talking about the relationships and having to think of other people, the group together. When you share this creed, yes, you really have no choice but to, in some way, unify for whatever theme you all come up with collectively at the start.
And I could see how that could get a little challenging too, especially if you have characters that are vastly different in, you know, whether it be their jobs or, you know, their own personal beliefs or things like that. Similar, I mean, I guess really even in just everyday life, you know, you think about it, you know, you go to work and you got to work with other people. Most of the time, most people work with other people. Even in this current day and age, if you know you're working remotely from home, you're still working with other people, and your one unifying goal really is to keep the company running, if you think about it. So, you know, in a way, it kind of helps, you know, to really instill those values and that thought process about working as a group. So, no, I absolutely hear what you're saying.
I think too here, this might be a good spot where the next question is, what sets Clink apart from other tabletop RPGs, to follow up on kind of what we're just talking about, but also to get David's perspective on our gameplay of Clink.
So watching y'all play through Clink has been a true joy for me. It is so entertaining to see y'all interact with the coin flips and the different, like, scars and memories. I really enjoy how the creed is specific enough to keep everyone moving in the same goal, but it allows flexibility for every character to sort of decide why they're doing this, and what their immediate goals are. I think y'all did a really good job framing the campaign in a way that is well suited for Clink's brand of, like, storytelling and adventure. I thought that was awesome.
What you were just saying about the development of both these scars and flashbacks, we do see how, you know, in direct relation to the Oni, how, like, Casanova, he does scar out but finds this level of peace. And we do see how like Kodai has found like a new purpose in life, kind of the opposite, where like Casanova like thought he had a purpose in life, but was actually really struggling. Then through this process, like found inner peace and left. Kodai, who knew that he was lost and had attempted to rectify that on his own, failed to do so, and then was kind of just wandering, then found this renewed purpose with the Oni as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it really, the discussion of flashbacks and scars is a great example of how Clink is set apart from other tabletop RPGs, where the development of the characters, like as you go, and the way they come out within the gameplay is definitely unique as far as I know. But also it's just so much fun and so great through finding new things about yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say, is it was really cool not to just see, other characters learn about other characters, but to see characters or players learn about their own characters as the story went on. I thought that was a really nice expression of what makes Clink special and fun, is that the whole group is sort of learning about each other together, which is really neat. It's not like one player shows up with 7 pages of backstory and hopes the rest of them read it.
Yeah, and I think that might be, it's one of my favorite aspects of Clink, if not my favorite aspect. You just, the simple fact that starting the game, you want to know as little about your character as possible. And, it's a collaborative creation. Again, I'm not the biggest RPG gamer in the world, but I personally don't know of another game that, I'm sure there are other collaborative games like this where you create your characters and whatnot. But, and here comes my dog barking behind me. It is a great mechanic that, you have to rely on these other people. You have to rely on these questions that you're getting, these leading questions that you're getting for whatever situation you're in, to actually grow and advance your character. It really just makes for a great experience, especially going into what we were talking about a little bit ago with working together as a group. This is definitely more group building as far as I'm concerned anyway.
There are two like big aspects to like these types of games too, right? There's the rules, and then there's really just sort of allowing yourself to be free and give into the characters. And sometimes those can directly conflict, where it's like, I'm really struggling to get into character because of the interruptions of, the dice rolls. Or I'm really struggling to have any fun because it just seems like everything is just going to work out because that's what the story says, and there aren't these rule checks. So there are really these two aspects to it, where kind of like what Nate was saying about like why he likes it and why it's good for social building and just kind of like therapy in general, is the ability to kind of give into this setting, give into the characters, and allow yourself to let go enough, it's really there. Like the mysterious aspect of it. It's like, okay, well, I have just like this base thing, like we're all kind of starting off in that gray area. And even if you have a ton of backstory, like you're not immediately in character. You have to kind of like allow the story to unfold a little bit. So it's like a really organic progression. And one of the other great things too is the memento prompts. So you're just like, I'll come up with 2 random mementos. You just never know how they will come about the way like the story goes. Like I love like the example of like the like macaroni like artwork in the book. And like I always think of it too, like the first memento I go to is like that example from the text.
For those of us that might not be familiar with the example, do you remember what it is offhand?
Are you quizzing me?
Well, just either one of you guys, because I'm not really sure exactly what the, like, obviously I'm assuming that it was like a macaroni, a piece of artwork as a memento, but
that's it. That's it. Like,
okay. I didn't know if there was more to it than that.
No, it's like when you're preparing your drifter, come up with 2 mementos. And I know one is definitely like a malfunctioning shotgun that like, so it's like used, you like keep it, I think it like can't fire or something is like one of the examples. Again, that like Western theme, that like non-firing gun. But then the macaroni like artwork, it's just like, just
What do you do with
like, yeah, like that's kind of like quirky enough that like, yeah, I kind of want to bring that along and see where this is just going to come up.
Yeah. I thought there was more. I thought there might be more of a story to what you were talking about, the macaroni artwork, but okay, never mind. Yeah, I see where you're going.
No, I think when I ran Clink at PAX, there was one of the people had like opted to take that as their memento, and they were also a priest, but much different, where it was the West, a few hundred years after where we were in Japan. And he had taken that like macaroni artwork, and then it like brought him to where he had to choose between like the tenets of his faith and then like defending children. And it was like he like inflicted physical harm on somebody to defend these children, and they made like the macaroni artwork for him. And so like it just like came up, you know, and it's like you like never think that these like crazy things that you come up with won't come up, but they will come up.
Oh yeah. There's an example that we talk about actually in the wrap up to Clink, that as of this recording hasn't aired yet, but by the time this actually drops, it would have aired yesterday. But the first time I ever played Clink, and we told you about this the first time, but hey, I'm going to tell you about it again. I created a character by the name of Tusslin Tommy Tate, who was this retired old boxer. We were set in the Wild West, retired boxer turned cowboy. And Conrad created this character, like this old curmudgeon-y cowboy, missing teeth and all this stuff, wrinkled, named Old Loogie, who carried around this giant spittoon. Now, one of my triggers was anytime I heard anything high pitched that sounded like a boxing bell, I would immediately start shadow boxing or boxing the nearest person to me. Anytime Conrad would spit into the spittoon, it would make a patink sound, and I would immediately start shadow boxing anybody in our general vicinity. So that got us into some precarious situations as well. It definitely makes for a great mechanic, whether it be completely natural like that, we didn't plan that, or if maybe you want to plan something with somebody, but it makes for like a great storytelling mechanic. I love that part of Clink.
It was literally the first thing that happened too.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, this is my character, Old Loogie. Ting! Just an immediate trigger.
Yep.
That's such an awesome example of characters or players being able to build on one another. I do think that is one of the things that I enjoy most from a GM perspective in any game, is seeing 2 or 3 or all the players really get together and dig into a concept. I'm running a game now where one character hates drugs or alcohol. They just cannot abide it. So the rest of the characters love describing these intricate stories or like missions of them hiding alcohol in various packages, pretending like it's water to share it around with each other. And it's been a really fun theme for the whole group to focus on, of like sort of pulling over the wool over this character's eyes for their own good so they don't get uncomfortable, but we're still going to have our alcohol. And that stuff is really, really cool. And I'm glad that Clink was able to encourage that for y'all. That's really cool.
This whole minimalist character thing that Clink has going is really cool, and it really grabbed us, as part of the game mechanic. Now, but we'd like to kind of hear your words as to why drifters were so interesting as a choice of character for Clink.
Well, the idea of starting with a blank character sheet fits the concept of a drifter really well. But what was interesting to me about the idea is I think I wanted the game to have a very specific focus. Since we decided not to make it a huge monster, we wanted to keep it focused. And the idea of a creed does that really well. It keeps the whole group focused on a single goal and makes sure that everybody's on the same page. So if you have mysterious characters all pursuing a dedicated goal, the idea of a drifter just sort of fits right into that concept really easily. Entering a new area, messing with the location, and then leaving when things have changed. So that was just sort of a natural evolution. It didn't start out as a theme that I wanted to explore, but rather the one that best fit the mechanics and the structure I'd come up with.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That's cool. That's cool.
Awesome. What would your ideal character to build in Clink be?
I've always loved playing characters who obviously lie. I've always really liked that concept of like, oh yeah, no, I definitely like beat a shark in a fight. Definitely. Meanwhile, he's like this stringy guy in a wheelchair or something. But that's always been interesting to me. So I would probably play a character who lies out loud, and one of their triggers would be whenever they're asked a question, they lie, obviously and badly.
No, beautiful. Tony, that's right up your alley, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and I remember ages ago now, but I think my buddy Neil ran a game. It was like his first game. I used to run a small game for him and a few of our other friends, but he decided he wanted to take up GMing for the first time. I think we're still doing D&D like 3.5. But I decided to play a rogue who every session that we met would be posing as a different class. So one session I was, a cleric, spouting holy texts and, had all the holy symbols. Next session after that, I was the wizard, had the spell book and components, and I bought a small animal and posed it as my familiar. So I definitely appreciate that. I like that a lot.
I love that. That's such a great idea. It's like I almost get like Team Fortress 2 spy vibes out of that.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously you are an independent game designer. What advice do you have for other independent game designers out there?
I think my best advice would be to try to make and finish something. It is very easy to work on something. I see a lot of posts on Reddit of someone's like, I've been working on this game for 12 years and it's almost done.
Yep.
I feel like you should write a couple smaller ones before that and just throw them out there. But along with that, when you are ready to throw your game out into the world, try to interact with other developers and help them out or encourage them if they've been an inspiration to you. I always get a lot of mileage out of connecting with people and trying to help them out in a way that they can maybe help me out later on. That's a really easy way to step into the scene. Start a blog where you review cool games or try to make a hack of another game that you really enjoy. That would be my advice.
And I got to say, I think that's some good advice because I can tell you from experience that it works. When we first started this project, I remember when we shot Kids on Bikes, which is our first series, we weren't really sure if it was ever going to see the light of day. Obviously we wanted it to, we wanted everything to work out and all this stuff, but there was a lot of uncertainties and everything back then, but obviously we finished it and here we are. But in doing that, we have met so many people, yourself included, that have they've been so unbelievably welcoming, warm. They've offered just so many different things to us, whether it be games to check out, to review, or potentially use on the show, or advice, artwork for some of the games that we've played. People have offered artwork and other things. But it's
agreeing to do interviews.
Agreeing to do interviews twice.
Everybody's been really awesome.
But no, things like that, and it's a and I kind of said this earlier too. It's a great space. It's a great little community that everybody seems to want to uplift one another. At least everybody that I've met so far. In kind of that you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours down the line type of a deal, and I really appreciate that because it's we're all trying to do something and get our projects out there, whether it be a game or a YouTube show or a podcast or whatnot. But we're all trying to get our projects out there, and I feel like networking is a great way of doing that. So now we know that you have worked on a litany of games. What can we expect for additional support and content for Clink in the future?
Clink is an interesting beast because I've already included some adventures in the core book.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like including more detailed adventures would defeat the collaborative, focused nature of it. I mean, can you imagine a 200-page adventure for Clink?
No.
Gosh.
In a way, I was kind of hoping that was your answer.
I don't know if Clink will get any more expansion material in the future. I would love to maybe release some more smaller things. Like I think the adventures in the core book are 2 or 3 pages. They're really short and focused.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll do some more stuff like that. But I got to tell you, I get so distracted by whatever's next that it's hard to go back to the things I've already worked on.
I know.
Working on anything specific right now?
I'm actually just wrapping up a Zine Quest project. We ran a Kickstarter that published and funded 2 zines. One of them is already out, and the next one will be out in about 2 weeks. So I'm excited to get those out into the world.
Perfect. Where once because actually this podcast will be dropping in about 2 weeks' time. So that would be about the time that game actually is out there. If you'd like, please let us know where they can pick it up and people can find it.
So everything's on my website. I keep it up to date. I put a lot of work into that to make it easy to read. And you can pick up a copy of Tempered Legacy, which is a tabletop zine filled with weapons that are locked behind regrets. You have to engage with the regrets and desires of the previous owners to unlock the power of that sword. So it's like you find an ancient weapon, and it's like the owner never told her father that she loved him. Go find the father, tell him the truth, and that gives you access to their magic and their potential.
I like that.
It was really fun to work on. Yeah, it was such a fun concept. The zine has about 19 weapons, each with 3 or 4 things to unlock, written by a bunch of cool designers. That one's already out. You can go to Technical Grimoire to buy that. The second zine is a smaller focus zine called Marsh Goons. It includes some rules by Nate Tremay, which is Tunnel Goons. It's like a simple OSR rule set. And then it has a small hex crawl with monsters and items and enough stuff to fuel a couple sessions. So it's like a little contained book filled with everything you need to play.
Beautiful. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Guys, definitely head over to tacticalgrimoire.com. Check it out. Pick up a couple copies if you'd like. And that way you and your friends can play. You and your friends can play. But David, we certainly
wait. One more game I want to bring up that is in beta that I know for sure Tony would love it based on the character you just saw in Clink and a character he will play that I won't spoil yet. But could you talk about the game Ripe really quickly?
I'd be happy to. Ripe is my back burner project. The beta rules are freely available on the website. I haven't updated them in a few months because I've been focusing on the 2 zines, but I hope to get back into that. The concept behind Ripe is you play as older, more experienced adventurers who have the capacity and the skills to do anything, but they don't have enough energy to do everything. So it's a game about collaborating with your other elders and trying to accomplish great feats while still making sure you get your nap in.
That's amazing.
And it's so cool too because like where else is that where it's like you're like really truly glorifying like senior citizens in a way that other than like I don't know Gandalf and Dumbledore, it's like the requirements basically like you have to be a wizard to be like a cool senior citizen. But
that's exactly right, Conrad. There's not a lot of really cool old people, and if there are, it's like I'm 4,000 years old, but I look like I'm 30.
Yeah,
right. I feel like anime is great for that too. Like you always have the old ancient badasses, like your Master Roshi's from Dragon Ball, or your Netero from Hunter x Hunter. Just these old guys who will just surprise you.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite archetypes. Just
we couldn't figure that out by the characters you've been playing on Dungeons and Dragons.
no.
Although I guess you did play Nelson Jr. Might be the youngest character you played.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, David, we certainly appreciate you taking the time tonight to speak to us again and answer these questions again. Unfortunately, technology was not on my side. But again, we certainly thank you for doing this with us tonight. It was a blast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for featuring Clink on your podcast and your playthrough. I'm honored and I'm super excited that y'all enjoyed it. And thanks again for bringing me on to hang out and nerd out. This is always a blast.
All right, guys, for the Degecast, I'm Nate Lindberg. Again, you can find me on Twitter at Nate Lindberg. And for Tony and Conrad, we will see you next week. Have a good one, all.